Good afternoon, everyone. My name is April Carty-Sipp. I'm Executive Vice President of Industry Affairs for the National Association of Broadcasters, and I'm really excited about this next panel. Welcome to our next session, which is called Engaging Audiences Through On-Air Talent. I'm thrilled to have with us three incredible members of the National Football League. Please welcome Tracy Perlman, who's the Senior Vice President of Player Operations at the National Football League.
Thank you, April. Hi, everyone.
Jason McCourty, who is a 13-year NFL veteran, Super Bowl champion, and NFL analyst at CBS. Jason, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys for having me.
And Sandy Nunez, who's the Vice President of On-Air Talent Management at the NFL Network.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
Welcome, all of you.
Thank you.
I want to start off with a question about something that I've been talking to Tracy about for, I think, over 9 or 10 months. She supervises this incredible program called the NFL Broadcast and Media Workshop, aka NFL Broadcaster Boot Camp. I'd love to hear the vision behind it, and if you could kind of tell us what that week is like. And by the way, thank you for coming, because it is this week, right after the show.
It is. So NFL Broadcast Boot Camp started in 2008. So this is going to be our 16th time. And it started at NFL Films, and then it went to a college and university. And recently we shifted that to be more of a peer-to-peer workshop where our network partners are the faculty. And we want it to be something where players can get reps, but they can also get coaching, and they can really understand the business of the sport. And the reason we work with our network partners is because they are looking for who is next, who's coming up next. And April knows this. Jason went through the program and he was coming up next. And I tell him this all the time. We don't look at your name. It's not based on who you are. The guys have to apply. We had 104 applications this year, and we only have 24 spots. And we do that so that they get the time to be coached. They get the time for the reps. They get the reels afterwards. And we want to make sure that they walk away with, okay, this is something I want to do. I understand the workload, and now I have the network to work with. So it really is important to us to help the player develop off the field and to give him the tools to make sure that he can move forward.
And Jason, you went through the program. When did you graduate? I would ask. So,
So yeah, I went through the program. That was in 2021, and I was kind of in the middle of deciding whether I wanted to play in my 14th year or hang up the cleats. And I remember at that time thinking to myself, I don't even know if I want to get into broadcasting, but I've done some things. I kind of want to see what it's about. And going through the boot camp was such a learning experience. To Tracy's point, being able to go out there and call a game in a 2-minute drill, and then have somebody like Fred Godelli, who is a legend in broadcasting, worked with John Madden and so many different people, give you feedback right after, and not feedback of, hey, Jason, I think you were awesome. You have a career at this. It was him scrolling through his iPad, telling you all the things that you had done bad in the rep that you just had. And coming off the field, like, that's where we thrive as players, because when you're getting in there and the coach is looking at the film the next day, he's not telling you how great you are, especially if you didn't win the game. He's getting on you, critiquing all the things that you fell short on. So the boot camp for me was a great way to learn kind of what it was to be in this business, but then also the part of it that she said, the network partners, the opportunities. The last day was a full-on audition. And for me, I ended up coming out of the boot camp with 3 different job opportunities. So you can't kind of dismiss the fact that you're there and there's so many eyeballs on you and people wanting you to do good, and they're going to critique you. But also, if you're able to perform, there's some things that come with that.
Can I just add one thing? So Jason is being modest. The class he was with was Richard Sherman, Devin McCourty, Larry Fitzgerald, Thomas Davis, and they force ranked. So we may think you're coming in and you're Richard Sherman, you're going to be the best at this. And when we ranked everyone, Jason McCourty was number 1 in every category. And it's because he took the education, he took the coaching. And again, it's not based on who you are and what position you play. It's based on what you learn and how you take the coaching.
Only thing I told Tracy was, as long as I beat my brother and I was above Devin McCourty, that's all I cared about.
That's true. And Sandy, you obviously hire several NFL players and all the other on-air talent at the NFL Network. What do you look for when you're hiring someone, whether it's a professional athlete or someone, Jamie Erdahl, like what are you looking for when you're hiring someone at the NFL Network, and why does this training make such a difference?
Well, there's many factors. I think the list starts with
like this. Just like this, if you hold it.
Thank you.
Sure.
There's many factors. The list starts with, their energy, their style, their personality. Is that better? There you go. Did anybody hear that? Should I start over? All right. Obviously I would not make it on the air. Okay. So it all starts with, their style, their energy, their personality. But it's also, I look at their work ethic. I look at their character. In other words, I do a full 360 to see what is this person about. And then the commitment. The commitment's huge. And I can see in the boot camp whether they're really taking this. I can see in the control room, are they taking notes? Are they really preparing for their taped segment? They know it's fake. We know it's fake, but are they really taking it real? So those are the types of things. Also team player, that's really important to me. I work with a coach that says that he's like, Sandy, you always like to say great team member, great talent. That's exactly what it comes down to.
And, Jason, what was the biggest challenge for you moving from on the field to off the field and behind the broadcast, booth, like behind the mic? How do you transition and start asking questions of people that were your peers and that you were playing with?
Yeah, the part that you ended with, I think, was the biggest challenge of when you're playing and you come to different things or you're being interviewed, someone's always asking you the questions and you're the subject of whatever the interview is. And when you transition to the other side of it, well, now I'm asking somebody questions and I'm trying to get the best out of them. And I would say the other part that was challenging was when you're on air, you have to say something, you have to be opinionated. And when you're on a football team or you're a part of a collective group, the main thing is you want to represent everybody the right way. And now when you're a part of a team, now it's about me. How am I making sure I'm putting my best foot forward to further my career? And at the same time, some of your peers are still playing. I remember my first year on Good Morning Football, NFL Network, my brother was still in the NFL and he'd have a game on Sunday where he dropped 2 interceptions. And on Monday morning, you better believe I'm saying to our producer, we need to put these plays and I'm going to destroy him on air. So I think that's the part of it that you have to get used to. Now when you're in that seat, you have to critique players and you have to be honest, because if there's a fan watching, they want that truth and they want the genuineness from you.
Fun Thanksgiving conversation.
He beat me a lot while we were playing, so I had to make sure I got some get back.
During the football season, of course, right? Tracy, what do you think as far as makes a player successful when they're transitioning as well? Like, you've seen how many legends are now part of this program?
Oh, we've had 24, I don't even know, over 16 seasons. And it used to be a class of 50, so It was much more. And we've had the greats, but the people who are great at this, they do what they did when they played. They study, they commit themselves. It takes as much to be successful at this as it did to play. And sometimes you've had this natural talent on the field and you really are uncomfortable doing this. We were talking about this before. We asked Jason, do you still get nervous? And there is a little bit of anxiety. It's that same anxiousness when you're getting ready to play in a Super Bowl because you want to be the best. And I think that translates. And the other thing that Sandy said, they're great team players. When you put somebody on a set, and I'm going to refer back to Jason, when Jason took over for Nate Burleson, that was a really big seat to fit in. And Jason fit right in there. And it felt to me like he had always been there. And I think that's something that comes from a locker room, comes from building relationships in a way. So I think it's studying, it's committing yourself, it's trying to be as successful off the field, and it's being the team player you were when you were on the team.
That's a great lead into my next question. Chemistry, probably on Good Morning Football, which I watch all the time. One of the top things in that show is the relationship between the 4 main players. And it was a great transition. Like I told you my husband said hi. Yeah. But, how do you develop that chemistry? What is some of the steps that you make, Sandy, or that you're looking for when you're developing the team together, when you have that, person that's transitioning?
Right. It's always a little bit, you're taking a gamble. You don't really know. So what I've done, I've been with the NFL for 4 years. And one of the things I've done is I've developed sort of a, what we call a micro deal where I can, if I see a player, let's say at a boot camp, and I think they might have some potential, but they're really not a tried and true talent yet, I will actually engage them for maybe 5 to 10 days in a contract. And let me back up. Sometimes I'll say, will you come in for free? Because that's not what it sounds like. It's for flexibility, not really for budget.
Right.
You know, if I say, if you're really interested in this, do you want to come on for a couple days this week or, a couple times a month? And that has really worked out because it allows me to really see how are they gelling? How's the conversation going? Are they being, a little too reserved? How much are they contributing really? And, so that has worked out. Plus we'll also do these micro deals that I'm telling you about. And then if that all aligns really nicely and we have money, we will do a real deal.
Obviously players now have a very different atmosphere than, 10, 15 years ago with personal brand. You're already out on social media, although we joked also, that players are behind the helmet, so getting your face out there in front of people is so different because your entire career is behind the scenes. I'll start with you, Tracy. Do you teach this portion in the NFL broadcaster bootcamp, or is that how does that work?
So as the head of player operations, I'm also the head of NFL player engagement. So there's a couple of things that we do. There is a mandatory education for players that is collectively bargained about social media, how to handle yourself, how to know, if somebody took over your account, what to do to protect yourself. So there's two sides of it because social media can also be something that's detrimental to a player. So we need to give them both sides of it. So the mandatory education really gives them the pitfalls, makes them understand what they're kind of opening themselves up to, gives them suggestions on, do you engage with a fan who is going to tell you how bad you played? Do you engage with somebody who is coming to you on DM that you don't know? So we make sure that they get that mandatory education first, but we also offer a personal brand and social media workshop that we created in partnership with Larry Fitzgerald. And that workshop is, first of all, to explain to players, you are a brand. You yourself, you are a brand. And while you're playing, you have the opportunity to let people see who you are off the field by using your skill on the field. And through that entire program, they get to network, but they also get to learn from YouTube. What is content creation? How can you become a content creator? They get to talk to X and Meta and Instagram and TikTok and learn how to use the platforms to their benefit. They also learn the metrics. What is working for me and what isn't? And through that program, we pair them with an NFL staff person. We have a player social media department now, and you are paired with an NFL person the entire season, and they are going to walk with you. So I'll give you the example of Cam Jordan. Any of you follow Cam Jordan on Instagram? He calls our office every week, and he tells us exactly what content he wants captured. So you all see what he's wearing when he walks in the stadium, and you see what he's wearing when he walks out if they win. So he is working with us daily to ensure that people know who he is. And the reason that Sandy knows him so well is because we've been working with him. We've taken his helmet off. He's a defensive end on a team that's not winning, but everybody knows him because he has used social media to his advantage and all of the programs we offer.
Can I just say one quick thing? He used it so well that he ended up on the red carpet for honors as one of the hosts. I mean, that was pretty nice. Paid off.
Perfect example. How did you use your personal brand or transition from football to on-air talent? Was there a transition? Were you cognizant of the difference? For sure, I'm sure you were, but how did you?
Yeah. For me, it started my first year in the NFL, kind of X now, Twitter at the time and Instagram, those things were kind of finally getting going. And for me, it wasn't really a transition. It was continuing to keep it going. So when you talk about building your brand as a player, it starts from day one in the NFL of every time I'm getting asked to be as a press conference as a player, or when someone's coming into the locker room to interview, it's an opportunity to show somebody your personality, to be able to just smile on the screen. It makes such a big difference. And I don't think when we're playing, we always think about it that way. But when you transition into media, Tracy talked about working as hard as you were when you were playing. It's a lot harder once you're done and you're getting into this business because there's not as many seats. You think about it. I was on Good Morning Football. There's not that many national shows that talk about football on an everyday basis. When you're calling a game, there's only but so many booths. There's only so many networks that actually have somebody at a game calling it. So for me, the branding started from day one in the NFL and it just continued to go. So I look at, you talk about the difference of time. My kids now, they're talking to me about Mr. Beast and I Show Speed and all of these different YouTubers that I have no idea who they are, but you have to stay up part because of our job. But then also for me as a dad, I have to stay on top of it so I know what the heck they're watching when they're going on YouTube Shorts and all of these other things. So it's something that I think I enjoy doing, so it doesn't feel as much like work, whether it's making a funny video with the family or if it's getting reps of talking about Patrick Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or whoever, if somebody getting a chance to see you.
And by the way, once again, when we were looking at him for consideration, I went and I looked through all that social media and it was an influencing factor. I liked what I saw. Nice, wholesome image. And, no, it was good. It was very good. And I could see his personality. So that was super fun. Whatever I couldn't really quite capture in the boot camp, I was able to see on his social media, and it was important.
And Sandy, players obviously have a large amount of experience in front of the camera, even as a player, you know, in press conferences, in the locker room, et cetera. How do you go from being a great guest to being a great host? Like, what do you notice? What is that turn? What's that transition like to?
So it's not easy. Jay can tell you, but it's a mindset, and it's not unusual to have to hire a talent or a former athlete and have them join a table. GMFB is a great example where maybe they are a little reserved. They're a little hesitant to jump in. You know, those girls and guys on that show, it's like, you know, flying bullets. It's back and forth. Jay knows. So, and you have to be really quick-witted and you have to just be ready to jump in and say something. So I think at the beginning, sometimes people forget they're not a guest. You know, we've asked you to come in to be a contributor. And we've had to have like sit down discussions and say, okay, you are not a guest. Please change your mindset. And it does work, but that's the difference. It's how you approach the show.
And Jason, you mentioned, there's not that many seats at a national level, but there's so many seats on a local level. You know, we're the National Association of Broadcasters. There's 15,000 radio stations across the country. Over 600 of them are sports focused. There's 1,000 plus television. 600 something are, you know, have news on a daily, like we've got some unbelievable stats on, local. How do you, I know you started off, on local. I'd love for you to share your experience on where you got your reps and some opportunities you feel like are in that space too.
Yeah, it built up for me. So I started my career with the Tennessee Titans. And at one point we wanted to do a locker room show. So myself and a veteran, George Wilson, we were in the locker room. We had stools and a microphone and we were interviewing guys on our team, asking them questions, talking about the upcoming game, the prior game. That transitioned into me getting a show on our local radio, the J-Mac show. It didn't really hit, but I had my own show and it would be coming from a restaurant in town every Monday. We didn't win a lot of games that year, so the guest list of players wanting to come talk after you just lost a game was a lot harder. But when you're having winning seasons and you fast forward to get a chance to play in New England with my brother, and when we got a chance to play on the same team, we started our own podcast. So for 4 years, we were doing our own podcast, and Nesson, a local cable station, picked up our podcast one of the year. So it started for me very small and doing some of those things, which was awesome because that's where you get so many reps. By the time I went to the boot camp, I had been hosting our own podcast for 3 years at the time. So when you talk about having reps and asking people questions and being in that hosting seat, I used to lead the show and my brother was kind of my co-host. So I got a chance to work so many different things out of what works, what doesn't work, and just being comfortable of being in front of the camera and having the energy, I think, is what a lot of guys miss out on. Is when you're now sitting there, you're in a studio and there is no crowd around or any of those things, you have to manufacture energy and make whoever's sitting alongside you feel comfortable enough to open up.
And I know I mentioned when we were backstage as well that, you know, when I worked at 6 ABC in Philadelphia, and we hired Brandon Graham from the Eagles to come to our studio every Sunday after the game, you know, from 11:30 to do our sportscast. I'd love Tracy to talk about some of the opportunities that, you know, that some of the graduates and or legends that are in broadcaster boot camp that, you know, have done. I think just some examples of what they've gone on to do.
So a lot of the guys who have done the broadcast workshop, yes, they get the national jobs, as you can see from Jason McCourty, Devin McCourty, Nate Burleson, Dan Orlovsky, the list goes on. But a lot of our guys go back to their city they played in and they host the local sportscast, or they host a local show. John Abraham went to the boot camp, I think 2 years ago. He's the host of the Falcon show locally for the Falcons, and they let him in the locker room. He has information other people don't have. He's a mentor for the team. So he has an opportunity to bring something to the table that not everybody does. Ray Lucas is another great example. Ray Lucas was a backup quarterback. He hosts the SNY New York Jets show. I think he's in year 15. And again, he has access that other people don't have. And I think what people need to remember, there are 20,000 living former players. They're the top 1%. Guys, in 105 years, 20,000 legends have played this game. And all of our guys are a hero where they played high school football or where they played college football. I don't think you have to look at them and say, oh, this guy has to be on an NFL show in an NFL market. They can be on a show for Ohio State. They can be on a show locally in Iowa for the high school that they went to. And again, people want to see them because they are local heroes. We also offer legends. We have a media network, and Devin has been on the calls. So Troy Vincent will give information to players that other broadcasters do not have. We went through every rule change and policy change with the legends 4 days before all of the votes at the annual meeting. So every single one of those players knew what was coming. And they were part of the conversation as to why those things were coming. So if you hire somebody to work for you locally, they're going to have access to information. They're going to have access to players. They're going to bring something to the table that not everybody can bring. We also have we can tell you where every single former player lives in this country because we want to continue to engage with them and help them develop off the field. So I think it's really important to remember from the local level, they really are good at what they do. They know the game better than anyone else, and they're going to have access that other people don't have.
Before I transition to a question for you, Sandy, this brings one more that I want to ask Jason. It's not just about football. There's other opportunities too. So I love what you said because they are experts and this is something that, that they have that no one else has. But going to, whether it's local or national, we talk about, Michael Strahan, like he does skincare, it's the broadcast opportunity that you have brings you so much different, experiences that you can talk about that are related to what you feel about personally. So can you talk a little bit about that as well and what opportunities you might have had in that space too?
Yeah, absolutely. I just was with Nate Burleson and was talking to him from Good Morning Football NFL Network to being on CBS mornings where whether I'm watching football or my grandmother's watching the news in the morning, you'll see Nate Burleson's face. For Devin and myself, next month, we go to Boston and we're hosting for Boston Medical Center, a hospital there, their annual gala that we've done the last few years. We've hosted the Patriots charity event that they've done. So hosting and doing different things like that have been great opportunities. There's marketing opportunities that come from being on TV when you see guys and commercials. But for me, the most meaningful thing has been things that you're passionate about outside of the game of football. You're able to have access to those things. Sickle cell is something that's important to Devin and myself, and we do a lot of work in that area. And people want you to talk about these things, partly because you're on TV, you know how to speak, you know how to get your point across. So it's helped a lot to do different passionate things that you have outside of the game of sports.
And the other thing it does is it flags something to me at the league office. Devin and Jason are our Inspire Change ambassadors because they have been doing this work and we needed two people that we knew believed in it and two people that people would listen to and players would listen to. And because we know him and we see what he does on air and we know who he is off the field, there was no question. I called him. I'm like, hi. He's like, how about me and Dev do it together? I was like, that's what I was hoping you would say. But it opens us up. I just asked him backstage to host something for me with rookies for every single rookie who is drafted or a free agent on May 6th. He will be the host of a webinar we do for every single rookie. Again, because we know he understands the topic. He sat in the seat that they sat in and he brings something to the table that we can't bring.
I just have to say this. The benefit of hiring a twin is that you can ask, if you can't make it, can you send your brother, or can you both come in? And we did that many times.
That's fabulous. Speaking of multiple, not people, but multiple levels of content, we've got, television, radio, every single social media platform. Content is in so many different spaces right now. How do you know what content resonates, with you and your job, with what you're seeing as far as the audience and what they're really following?
So, for myself, I actually was a content producer, a real producer, not just content, network producer, I should say, for almost 30 years. In fact, I just saw somebody that I know here and that I used to work with at ESPN. Hi, Sean. Anyway, so I like to say I know television well because I helped produce it at some of the highest level outlets. And I think that good programming is good programming no matter what platform it's on. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not on a high visibility platform, it will bubble up. It will be, if it's really good, actually I knew about your podcasts. It did catch my attention. So things like that, if they're good enough, they will resonate no matter what the platform is. And it's just about just getting your reps and keep going, building the brand.
Jason, you do different shows in front of live audiences, and also you probably do live appearances as well, for the networks and stations that you've worked for. How does that differ from when you're in the studio, and how does that help or benefit the company that you're working with?
Oh, it's unbelievable. Being in the studio, you're sitting there and there's a bunch of cameras around. It's just you or whoever people you're with. When you go to live events, I remember being a part of Good Morning Football and we went to London. It was the first time I had done something like that. And when you have fans standing behind you, whether they're cheering for you or booing you, whatever the case may be, it brings a different level of energy. And it's like playing in a game. You can go out there for practice every single day and it's just you and your teammates and it's more of a grind. And then you show up on game day and you see getting that atmosphere. I call games as well. And when you walk into a stadium and when they're doing the national anthem, and you hear the crowd roar, there's something that it does to you inside that you really feel like you're where you're supposed to be. So whenever you can be a part of a live event and people want to be there and they want to see you, and it just brings something else out of you. I can remember being in London and we're down there and my co-host Kyle Brandt is doing Angry Runs, a segment that if you've seen it, you're sweating at home while you're watching it. And somehow or the other, he ends up kissing a woman. And if we were in studio, that would never happen.
He's still trying to explain that,
He's still trying to explain that. The aftermath of that was not fun for him when he's trying to text his wife who's getting the kids ready for school, like, hey, maybe don't turn the show on today. But a live event brings that different energy out of you. I don't know that I'm ever going to kiss somebody at a live event, but it was a special TV moment just that entire week of things happening that typically don't happen when you're in the studio.
And we were talking a little bit about Radio Row. I'd love to talk. So, if you go to the Super Bowl or a large event, there's, different booths that are, stationed where you hit different radio, or television, appearances. How does that work as a player? And then have you done one of those as a talent? I'm curious since that's.
Yeah, I've done too many of them. And it's, before you know exactly what it is, I remember my agent was telling me, hey, we're going to have you go down to Radio Row. So, just the name of it, you're expecting just like, but it's just this. It's a room in a conference, convention center or something like that. And there's just hundreds of booths set up you'll have something from a local radio show. And it doesn't matter where the Super Bowl is or what team is playing. I was in New Orleans this past year and we had the Eagles and we had the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm sitting down with a local radio station in Las Vegas and we're talking about sports. And I've done it as a player while I was playing in the NFL where you would go down and there was an opportunity to make money or talk about different causes. And then I've done the other side of it now as a host of going through, but it's much like this. You're just going from booth to booth, talking about whether it's the game itself or things that happen throughout the course of the season, but it's another opportunity for reps in a sense to do that.
And Tracy, I know you not only offer this boot camp, but you talked about the one you do for social media and personal branding. What other programs do you have I can tell it's a lot.
We have a lot of programs. So I think when we created player operations, which the NFL has not had a player operations department for that long, it's only 8 years old. It became a support and service for players. And it's about helping guys transition into the league, but helping them transition out. And you need to prepare them for that with programming throughout the season. So what we do for mandatory education is collectively bargained, and it's very much about policy. But in the off season, we want to offer programs that guys are looking for. So we actually ask them, what do you want? So this year we did a Hollywood boot camp with an entertainment company called Skydance Sports and Hidden Empire. And we gave guys 3 days of what it's like to be a cinematographer, a director, a writer, a casting director. And they actually had to create trailers for films. And they spent 3 days learning all of these different things. And the interesting part is they all gravitated to something different. Not everybody who came in thinking he wanted to be an actor wanted to be the actor in the trailer. We just offered something with LVMH for fashion. So we brought in 30 guys to New York, and LVMH taught them everything about the fashion industry. We just did something called NFL Biz Week to give guys insight into private equity, venture capital, real estate. We really want guys to start to think about what they want to do. And we're going to continue to build those programs. We did one with EA about game development. We also offer internships, job shadows. Peanut Tillman is currently an FBI agent, and he offers to any player who wants to go into law enforcement the time to spend a full day with him working at the FBI. So our hope is that some guys are going to go into some of these, and I'll give you an example. We had one guy tell us he wanted to be a homicide detective. We assigned him with somebody from Chicago, and he got a call at 3:00 in the morning saying, let's go. And he was like, what? And the cop said, hey, there was a murder. Let's go. The next day he called us. He said, never again. That is not what I thought it was. And I can't do this. But that's the hope. Like, there are going to be some things you really gravitate to and some things that you say, this is not for me. And we want to make sure we offer you those things so that when you transition out, you have an idea of the direction you want to go.
I love that you're able to go through that process while they're a player so that there's still opportunities and other ways for them to shine.
I was just going to say, I didn't know Peanut was doing that with the FBI. When did that start?
It started 2 years ago.
Okay. He's been in the LA studio. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Something to talk about on Monday.
He's been with the FBI for 8 years, but he started doing the shadows for us 2 years ago.
Sandy, there's a lot of charisma that players bring to the mix. And not only that, but on-air talent in general, is something that's really important. But a lot of times on-air charisma is not enough to translate on camera. I'd love for you to talk about how you work with talent to hone that skill set, and what is the number one thing that they need to know that when they're doing that.
Well, I think you actually touched on it. Skill set is the operative word. You can have a great personality, but if you don't know you need to develop a level of awareness of how you're presenting, and you need to learn how to be at either a desk or a table and be figuring out the rhythm on how to work with the other talent that are with you. So, and that's a skill that does not happen overnight. It takes a while. In our case, we have coaches who work with our talent. Jerry Madelon worked with you, and a lot of the other guys that come through. We give feedback. The producers give feedback. But the point is that you can have the most amazing personality. If you are not coachable, that will be an issue.
Jason, did you notice anything when you transitioned from the NFL Network to going to we were talking about doing a game versus a studio show.
Yeah.
I'd love to, it was a great story backstage how you.
Yeah, the nerves are a lot different. When you're getting ready for a studio show, much like this panel, you send the questions over, you can kind of get an idea of what you want to say and how to get your point across. When you're preparing for a game, I can do all the film study throughout the course of the week. I can talk to players and coaches. I have no idea after the first kickoff how the game's going to go. I prepared for the starting quarterback who possibly gets hurt in the first quarter, and now you better make sure you've done your research on the backup quarterback because he's now become the star of the game. So I think the nerves and the butterflies are very different when you're going to do a game. I remember my first time going to the stadium, and I was calling the game for the radio, and I was doing it alongside Iron Eagle. And with Howard Dinneroff, who was at Westwood One at the time, he gave me the game assignment, and I saw the email, and I saw Iron Eagle's name on it. I called him. I was like, you're going to let me do a game with Iron? Like, isn't there don't you got to start at the bottom and work your way up? And it was just like, well, no, just in case you screw it up, we want somebody there that knows what they're doing to keep the train on the track. So just those nerves, and each situation is so different. In radio, you're in a booth. When we were as the Cleveland Browns game, we're in the corner of the stadium, and I had to lean out to be able to see the game. And this past year at CBS, you're for the TV network. You're right on the 50-yard line in the best booth. So you kind of got to take your lumps as you're going through it. But games is just an awesome atmosphere to be a part of.
I love that. I know we only have a few minutes left. I know I asked each of you for a key takeaway, but so I want to chalk that in the back of your mind while I open it to the audience. If anybody has, I already have somebody raising their hand for a question.
Which question? Thank you. Appreciate it. Hi, guys. How's it going? Thank you for sharing stories. My name is Rudy. I work with the LA Rams. So I work a lot with the talent. I'm more on the studio and podcast side. So we have great talents like MJD and DeMarco Farr, which they're already trained. So it's easy for me to give them direction, right? And I believe Quentin Lake did.
He did.
And
he did. He's great.
I'm not saying that he got a lot better, but he got a lot better coming from that one. But, I also encounter players who have never done anything because maybe it's their first season, second season, or maybe they never thought that that's something they love. But I still got to talk to them, coach them, kind of like direct them. What is like something that you would maybe you can point them in the right direction, a way to talk to them, or maybe break down certain things so they feel comfortable, because camera can be very intimidating.
I have to tell you, I defer. So we do the peer-to-peer, and you have the opportunity to do that because you work with the Rams. So instead of us giving the feedback, we've had legends come on and talk to guys who don't get into the boot camp because the reel isn't good enough. And it's interesting. They each talk about something different, but we always lean in on either a coach who's done it, NFL Films, who's got Greg Cosell, or a peer. And you have guys from the Rams that could do that.
I would say the one thing coming from a player's perspective, we always value film. So if I'm a coach and I'm demoting a player or I'm promoting a player, I have the film to back it up. So to me, whenever you're coaching somebody, if you've recorded a segment or an interview and you have an example to show them of, hey, in this moment, look how relaxed you are. Look at the energy that you're bringing. And then another moment where it's just like it's not that, and you're showing them, now they can see it, and it's not you. Maybe they're not taking it personal like they're being attacked, but it's me just showing you the film, because that's their day, that's their life every single day. A coach showing them the film, whether good or bad, and being able to correct it.
And the last part I would say is consistency. You need to make sure you're doing that. I would anyway, each time you do a session with them, so that they know immediately what you liked, what you didn't like.
Hey guys, thank you so much for doing this great insight. I'm a professor of journalism at the University of Florida, and we actually do this program for our football players. And so we wanted to thank you guys for sort of setting this blueprint. We're planning our second year now. We do radio, we do TV, we do personal branding. We have this year, we're going to have the new director for Monday Night Football come in and sort of oversee this whole thing. But they get so much out of it. We did it last year, incredible feedback. But thank you guys for really setting the blueprint, because it's resonating and cascading down. So it's not just professional players, but it's college players now as well.
That's awesome.
So, thank you. That's amazing.
Thank you all. I'm Nick Langan with Radio World. I wanted to ask Jason and maybe Sandy too, like coaching chemistry with a play-by-play announcer. I know Jason, like Andrew Catalan, you mentioned Ian Eagle. I think, from a viewer perspective, that could be really noticeable, when you've got it going. So if each of you could reflect on, any instruction you usually give or take to heart there.
Yeah, that's such a good question. My first year doing radio, I basically had a different play-by-play guy. I felt like every time I went to a game. So from Catalan to Tom McCarthy to so many different guys, Kevin Cooler, you have to get in there and work with those guys. But the chemistry is everything. Being able to have a good laugh while you're on there. Working with Andrew Catalan this year, we're doing a Denver Broncos game versus the Chargers, and they're playing the Beatles song, Let It Be. and Andrew makes reference to it, and I have no idea what the song is. So I didn't grow up listening to the Beatles. And Andrew looks at me, and obviously they couldn't see us. We weren't on screen, but the disappointment in his face when he looked at me, it was like, you really don't know this song. But that's the time spent together, not only the 3 hours that we're in the booth calling the game, but it's flying. We all came from Jersey, him, myself, and Tiki Barber. We're on the plane together to whatever city. We're hanging out Friday night, then we're doing our production. So all of that time spent, that chemistry is everything. No different than sitting on the desk at Good Morning Football with Jamie, Peter, Kyle, all of us getting a chance to know each other. So that chemistry is very noticeable, and that's why everybody's always critiquing different booths and all of that, because as a viewer, you want to feel like those two guys or woman, whoever it is, they're sitting down with you on the couch, you're watching the game, and they're teaching you something in tidbits, but you guys are just enjoying the game as company.
Absolutely. And it's not everybody can do it. It's very difficult, as I'm sure you know. But the one memory that stands out for me was when we were you always have good chemistry, but in Germany, when you were with Orlovsky, that was the first time they'd worked together, right? First time, right?
Me, him, and Rich. All three of us calling the game together. None of us had ever worked together before.
Right. So we're in the car en route to the stadium, like this could go a few different ways. But because there's tempo, there's timing, there's who's going to step on each other's toes, or who's going to get, how are you going to give and take, right? So, I mean, I had a lot of faith, but what I will say is the game can be really good, but if the booth is really clutch, the whole thing is super memorable. And I really felt that that's what they delivered in Germany. It was a great experience.
We have time for one more question.
Thanks. This is an awesome panel. Quick question about contrasting broadcasting on radio versus television, where the people can't see what you're seeing, on radio. I was wondering about that,
Yeah, Howard Dinneroff, I mentioned earlier, he said to us, your guys are going to do a radio game and a play is going to happen. The first thing you guys are going to say is, you see right there on that play, and you're going to go and start to explain it. And you're going to forget that if someone's listening to you, they're not watching the game. And the first time I went on and do the game, that was the first thing I said. But the biggest thing is just a description. When you're calling a game for TV, you want to give why and make that the most important thing. If you don't have an explanation why, then just shut up and let the play-by-play guy do it, because everybody just saw how amazing the catch was. Why was it that amazing? Why was he so open? Those are the things that people want to see. When I'm doing a game for the radio and Kevin Harlan is calling the game, he gave you every description, the spin and all of that. Now you want to explain why it's happening the way it's happening, but you have to say to the person, like, maybe he didn't say the fact that it was a fingertips catch and it was an unbelievable of how he was able to catch that ball. So the TV and the radio are so different. And I remember talking to Kurt Warner before I got ready to do my first game. He loves doing radio more than TV because he can paint the picture exactly through his lens, and he doesn't have to worry about the person driving in the car listening, making whatever assumption they want about the play, because they have to rely and trust what his eyes are seeing.
And at Broadcast Workshop, it is the thing the guys have the most difficulty with. And when Jason went, we only gave them one shot at radio.
We cheated too.
And so now we give them 2 shots at radio. And it's so interesting because Howie always says to me, the guys that I didn't think would be great at radio are great at radio. But it is the most difficult thing they do.
My brother did his for the radio first. And when he finished and Howard gave him all his corrections, he texted me everything he told him. So when I went, I knocked it out the park because I knew all the corrections that he just had. So we kind of cheated and I got hired, and they hired Dev the next year. So it worked out for both of us.
I really can't thank you enough, Tracy, Jason, and Sandy. This has been an incredible conversation, and getting us the insights inside how the NFL does and engages with talent has been incredible. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's give them a great round of applause.
Thank you.